in the last book of the Bible, the synagogue of Satan is talked about, correct? The fake Jews. Okay, that would be there in Rome. I'm not going to say it because that's protected. You're not allowed to say the name of that church in this free country we live in, that nobody, like everybody just talks about it being America. Well, it really isn't. But anyway, that is the synagogue of Satan. Now, most of this world would say you can't say that because it's going to create hate. No, it's very simple here. True followers of Jesus Christ would never get violent. Never, 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 never. That is the telltale sign. We'll stand there and let you kill us, but we're not, or we may defend ourselves, but we would never get violent. But as it says in John, we are to call out the truth. We are to expose it to the light of day, so that it is seen for what it is, so it doesn't lead everyone else astray and lead more people into damnation. Now, that's it. Those that have passed over, that were part of that Church of Rome. I believe God is very merciful. I think he knows a ton of people have led astray. I don't think all those people are damned. I do think that most of the leaders, those that know, and God knows who they are, and those that continue to push it forward, the false church, well, they will have a different accounting too. Why do I say this? Because in Jerusalem, the first Christian church was started by Jews, not Gentiles. Jews. I know this whole America has this issue, the whole world has issue with the Jews. But the fact is, that's the way it is. That's the line. Jesus came through, okay, he was a Jew. Every apostle was a Jew. I get, then Paul came along. He was a former Roman guard. I'm not discounting everything he said. I'm just saying, if you stick with just the original apostles, most especially John. John's the most important out of all because he was the living martyr. He was the one Jesus most wanted you to pay attention to. But the Holy Roman Empire there, well, they place everything on Peter and Paul. But the fact is that in Jerusalem, there was a community of Christians, and which is how Jesus wanted it. It's how because Jesus wasn't building cathedrals. He wasn't building buildings. I say this all the time. So in Jerusalem was the first church in AD 30. Then the Holy Roman Empire comes along, says, let's just change our image up a little bit. And, look, we won't realize we're going to put on these big pointy hats and, be these big loud colors and look completely ridiculous and more out of place than the Pharisees. And then we're going to claim that we're the first church and it's based on something Jesus said to Peter. But none of them being Jewish. But claiming they're the first church. That's the synagogue of Satan. And that is the church that has most wanted to go after Jews. Well, they claim that, no, we need to support the Jews. They are the seed of Satan. They are. They came along and they have convinced everyone. I mean, could you say they were the first Gentile church? Sure, but that's not what Jesus didn't want that. But they've made it out like that, no, Paul came and brought us this. And no, it was being offered by John and the other apostles to everyone. But the very first Christian church, even though they say theirs was started in AD 33, the first Christian church was started in AD 30. Immediately following the resurrection with the community of believers, okay? Those are the ones to stick to. Most especially the Gospels, most especially John's Gospel. Why am I saying this? Because the letter to the Church of Philadelphia in the book of Revelations, even though it's not been told to any American, was the letter to America. It was. See, the thing is, America was created not having any kings. That's based on the Bible, actually. I mean, I've done tons of videos about how the kings are important. They are, because God does raise them up. But there is that part in the Bible where God was the king over the Israelites at one point. But because they wanted to be worldly and wanted to be like all the other nations, they said, we want a king. We want a king. We don't want to have God as our king. So God was not happy, but he's like, fine, I'll give him a king. So he put a king over them. A lot of problems, but they got what they wanted. So the kings are important. The leaders are important. But that's where America is very, very unique, okay? It's very unique because God said, no, I'm not. It's going to have religious liberty, meaning you're going to let other religions, because you're strong enough in your Christian faith that you're not going to be taken into, taken over. I know you won't. He believed that. That's why there was that's the only reason Jesus or God in the Old Testament had issue with the Israelites being in the same country with other religions, is they would take on their customs, and then they would start throwing their children into the fire of Baal. Like, not cool, all right? So then, but by the time America came, okay, Christianity has spread. There was, pretty much and that you had all those Protestants, the true Protestants, really, the Scottish Covenanters, the Pilgrims, the Puritans, the Presbyterians, all the churches have become worldly now, unfortunately, except for maybe a handful that aren't, but those were strong people. God brought them here and said, this is what we're going to do here. We're going to have no monarchies, because I'm not going to let the Holy Roman Empire there be able to get a hold of a monarchy, because that's what they were doing in England. So he didn't want kings here, which is why you have these no kings protests. But see, we did actually get a monarchy. This was the monarchy. It just was more covert. Yes. And this monarchy was all tied in with the British aristocrats, okay? And the European kings, and yeah. So that's why, the gates of hell flew open when JFK was elected. This is the other reason I get silenced. But everything based on, if you believe the Bible, this was the monarchy beginning. So in order to get rid of the monarchy you've been living under, because look at this political dynasty crap. Sometimes you need somebody from a lineage of kings. So God will say, do you not notice my hand on things here? I'm trying to fix the big mess your country's in. But if you continue to carry on about following false churches, then I'm not going to be happy. However, the letter to the Church of Philadelphia was to America. This idea, the churches was the people. It was the community. Okay? Like when John was writing the letter to those churches, they were not buildings, it was communities. Even when John left Patmos and went back to Ephesus, he was still teaching in the community. It was not a building, it wasn't a church. At the most, maybe a community center, but it was not. It was the community of Christians. In our minds, in this day and age, it's like, oh, it's to this specific church. No, it's not. Which is why when it says in Revelations, this letter's to the Church of Philadelphia, John's talking to the community of those people in Ephesus, in Philadelphia, in Smyrna. And because William Penn named Philadelphia here after that, and because John's letter to the Church of Philadelphia makes no sense for the Philadelphia there in Asia Minor, because it did fall, and it basically says you won't fall, you won't face a tribulation while the whole rest of the world does. It means it was talking to you, America. Please go read that. I tell people, go read it. Read it from the King James Bible before you read it from some contemporary modern day, because they've twisted things. So you've always got to be careful. Stick with the King James. If you don't understand it, then look up the words you don't understand. But the fact is, there were two Christian churches, and one is the synagogue of Satan, and one was started in Jerusalem in the community by Jewish people, because that's who all the apostles were Jews. Do you understand now why everybody's going after Israel?